Hey everybody, and welcome to week 4 of critical thinking. This week we're going to have a slightly different video format, and I hope the volume is okay. I've had a really hard time trying to set it, so you may want to turn it all the way up on your computer so that you can hear this. This week we're going to work on how to map arguments, as is shown in Chapter 5, and we're going to try a high-tech way and a low-tech way. And there's also an even lower tech way that I'll tell you about. Meanwhile, why do we even want to map arguments? The important point is that when we are dealing with arguments, what we want to do is analyze them, which means separate them into their parts so that we can look at each part and we can look at the relationship between them and evaluate whether they are good arguments or not and how they work. So mapping forces us to physically separate each statement of the argument. And because we can't have more than one statement or in each shape, and we can't have any reasoning within a shape. So the reasoning is all contained in the arrows between the shapes. So this allows us to really see visually what an argument looks like. Now, how do we do it? There is specialized software out there, which we don't have, so we're going to have to try to use what we do have to do the best job we possibly can. And if neither of the methods I show you in this presentation work for you, then what you can do is just draw your maps on paper using the same shapes and colors, and then scan them and email them to me. If you don't know how to do this, you can do it through your local LAC, so they can help you with it. So here's the high-tech method. On page 100, there's a list of symbols, and it's a pretty long list of all different symbols of decision mapping. I have found that only some of these are going to be relevant for us, because the important thing for us is the conclusion or main claim of the argument, the reasons for the conclusion, any objections to the conclusion, and objections are actually reasons. They're just reasons why the argument is not, or why the conclusion is not true, and so they often lead to a different conclusion of their own. Sometimes we assume some things. We assume that the people hearing or reading the argument know some things, and sometimes it's true that they do, and sometimes it's not true. So we need to be sure to tease out anything that's being implied but not spoken in the argument. And the direction of thought. You would be amazed sometimes how difficult it is to separate what is a reason from what is a conclusion. And of course, an argument always flows from reason to conclusion. So our high-tech method will involve using argument mapping symbols from Microsoft Word. And I have made a Microsoft Word document with these symbols in them for you to cut and paste into your own document, and then you can highlight the text and type whatever conclusion you have in for your particular argument that you're trying to analyze. Then you can type your reason, whatever that happens to be, objection, unspoken element, and then you can also copy the arrow that shows which direction the reason is flowing. I will show you how to do this in a couple of minutes. So those are the symbols for the high-tech method. And here's an example of a simple argument from our text expressed in symbols. It says it's no use texting her because she lost her phone yesterday. So the conclusion is it's no use texting her. The reason is she lost her phone yesterday, and therefore the arrow points from the reason to the conclusion. In this case, the arrow, if you go in this direction, means so or therefore. She lost her phone yesterday, so it's no use texting her. If you go the other way, the arrow in the backwards way means because. It's no use texting her because she lost her phone yesterday. The arrow must always point from the reason to the conclusion, and each statement, each shape can only have one statement in it, no reasoning. Here's another exercise. She said, I would buy that TV. If it weren't for how much it costs and its size, I would buy that TV for my bedroom. So the conclusion is, I would buy that TV for my bedroom, but it costs too much, and it's too big. All right, so these are objections or negative reasons, reasons why she is not going to buy that TV for her bedroom. There's another way of mapping this, though. You can map it in the positive way. I will not buy that TV for my bedroom is the conclusion, and one reason is it's too big, and the other reason is it's too expensive. Now, this is the reverse of how the exercise is written, but as you can tell, the argument is still the same, because the conclusion is still, I ain't going to buy that TV, and the reasons are still the size and the price. So either way, whether you do it the positive way with reasons and conclusion, or the quote-unquote negative way with conclusion and objections, it doesn't matter. It's the same argument. Okay. Now, on page 88, our text says that each reason plus conclusion is actually considered to be a separate argument. And that is true. But personally, I think that makes things very, very complicated for us. And I think we all can handle a list of reasons that all support the same conclusion. So I'm absolutely fine with you doing 2 reasons pointing to the same conclusion, and sometimes even more. Now we also have what are called chains of reasoning, which is when we have a reason that leads to a conclusion, but then that conclusion becomes sort of an intermediary between the reason and a final conclusion. So in this case, the sky is full of cumulonimbus clouds, which means, therefore, thunderstorms are likely. That could be an argument in and of itself, in which case this would be a green conclusion box. But I am going to go further than that. I'm going to say, because thunderstorms are likely, it is not a good beach day. And so therefore this actually becomes another reason for the final argument. And this can be difficult. It's not always clear what argument leads to another, or if they're all separate reasons for the same conclusion. Complicated arguments. Okay, here's one that says, I'm not making enough money at my current job. Therefore, I need a new job. But the problem is, the objection is, my current job is so time-consuming, I don't have time to look. And another objection is, there are no good jobs in this area. So my conclusion is, maybe I need to quit this job and move somewhere else. Therefore, I'll have more time, and there may be more jobs in that area than there are here. And these objections have now become reasons for another conclusion. So this is how our minds work. We go from reason to conclusion, but then there are objections to that conclusion, and then we come to another conclusion. So these symbols can be a little bit difficult, but really not so much. Let me show you actually how to do an argument using these symbols. So here's a document with the symbols again, and here is an argument. Syrian civilians are being slaughtered by their totalitarian government. The U.S. is opposed to totalitarian governments and wants to prevent any more civilian deaths. Therefore, we should attack the Syrian government. Okay, so I am going to copy, which is Control-C, and come over here and paste. And I'm going to move my conclusion over to the side, over to here, make it a little bit bigger so I have room to type. And I'm going to say, okay. Now I need to bring over my reason. Again, Control-C, bring it over. Whoops, I messed that one up. Try it again. Control-C, Control-V. All right, much better. Now, my one reason is now, we need to show the actual reasoning between the statements, which means we need an arrow. So I'm going to do the same thing, Control-C, Control-V, and then I'm just going to grab the arrow and move it over. And now my reasoning flows from reason to conclusion. Syrian civilians are being slaughtered, therefore we should attack the Syrian government. But there's another reason. So let's copy and paste another reason. We want to get rid of the totalitarian government. So we have another reason for why we should attack. So we need another arrow. And this arrow we're going to have to move a little bit so that it points in the right direction. Okay, now here's the problem. We should attack the Syrian government, but we've already gotten involved in 2 Middle Eastern wars and lost many American lives. So anytime we have a but, what we have here is an objection. Okay. Okay. Now an unspoken element here is that we thought those wars would be easy as well. So maybe we shouldn't try to do this, okay? Now, let me just change something here. Okay. We are already involved in 2 Middle Eastern wars, and we thought both of those would be easy, but they weren't. And sorry, I'm trying to make this look a little bit better. Also, another objection leading away from our conclusion. Sorry, this is getting to be a mess. Is we may get a government that's not friendly. So as a result of those 2 objections, we have a new conclusion. It is not in our interest to attack Syria. Now I can change the way this page looks and make it a little bit nicer, but for now you can see that we can just copy and paste the shapes and put our reasoning in the shapes. Now, a lower tech method may be useful, and I am going to have to probably do it in another video because I only have 15 minutes on this one. But I want to show you my reasoning for doing a lower tech method is that the reason is mapping arguments is really important for internalizing argument structure, which leads to the conclusion that students need to map arguments. My unspoken element is Microsoft symbols can be a good way to do it, but these can be difficult and therefore we can use a lower tech way. So in the next video I'm going to show you the lower tech way.